What is up, everybody, and welcome. In today's video, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So I've been meaning to make this video for a while, and it was just kind of a matter of finding the right time. This is going to be some lies that I've told you in videos, some corrections to mistakes that I've made, and then we're going to talk about a couple of quick updates to the channel that I think are pretty important. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm just going to kind of rattle off some videos, what I said wrong, and we'll go from there. In the Three Bears video that I did a while back, I think it was titled Three Bears Walk Into a Bar. It was about three Shirogorov knives. In that video, I said that the Three Bears nomenclature likely referred to the three M's that are associated with Three Bears models, which would be internal milling, M390 steel, and multi-row bearings. The Russian word for bear starts with the letter M, and it was just kind of something that I had pieced together in my head that it made sense, and it turns out that was just a coincidence. The Three Bears nomenclature doesn't have anything directly tied to those three things in the sense of being the three M's. Next up is the Talon video. Now, this is something that definitely needs to be addressed. If you watched that video and you read the comments for the Clyde Challenor Talon, you know that there was quite a bit of, we'll say, heartbreak among certain people about the fact that I didn't quite do justice in regards to the screws, and particularly the tool used to loosen those screws. So in the video, I complained that the screws were of a proprietary design and that it was most likely that the only way you'd be able to undo them is with a proprietary tool that I assumed Clyde was making. Now, lots of people were polite enough to point out that it's actually been designed to function with a flathead screwdriver. That's cool. But I'm going to kind of contradict that and say that I'm still complaining about the screws. And the reason for this is twofold. So I got to thinking about flathead screwdrivers. In fact, I'm actually going to do an edit here and go find a couple flathead screwdrivers so I can tell you guys what I'm talking about. Okay, so there's two kinds. One kind I can't find in my house, but you guys are familiar with this. This is the most common flathead design on screwdrivers where the whole driver is a fixed driver, in that it's not an interchangeable bit like this, but if you just have one screwdriver that's a flathead, usually they're angled, right? And so they're kind of diamond shaped, right? So that there's the stick that it's on, and then it kind of comes out like this, and then is shaped in like that. And it's not 90 degrees all the way up and down, right? It comes in at an angle so that the tip is thin, but that it thickens. The other style is what I have three examples of here, which are curved. Sorry, I know it's out of focus. I'm trying here. So you can see it's not a straight stick, right? Like it kind of is curved. It swoops in like this. All right. So what this means is these screws that are on this Talon, they're very deep, okay? We're not talking super shallow Torx bit that as long as you can get the tip right in there, that's all you need. They're deep screws, man, like multiple millimeters deep. What this means is because they are shaved completely, perpendicular, completely vertical, and because they're deep, as soon as you get one of these in here, the sort of thicker part of the flathead tip will make contact with the top of the screw before the bottom makes contact with the bottom. And so you're going to have a screwdriver that's twisted or like kind of off kilter. Now, this means one of two things. The first thing that comes to mind is it means that you're going to mangle the finishing of the edge of the screw, because this curved part is going to feel the torque that you're putting in, and it's going to resist that torque by potentially sort of gnarling the metal that's around the tip. Now, this is seems like common sense as far as I'm concerned. Now, I have a friend who has a Talon and a Raptor, which is the larger version of the Talon. And he said that he tried to disassemble his Talon, and he was excited because he thought that he could use a flathead screwdriver. What he ended up doing as a solution to the problem I just outlined, which is that because of the design of a flathead, you're going to be putting more torque on the top edge of the screw and therefore risking damage to it. This is very common on Shiragorovs. Anytime somebody's used a flathead or a coin to try to undo a Shiragorov and you've slipped a little bit, or you've kind of torqued it a little bit too much to where it slips, it gnarls the pivot, and that's no good. So what my friend did was he put tape, I presume masking tape, around the tip just to kind of fill in that gap that's created by the shape of the screwdriver, as well as sort of make it soft up against the edge of the screw so that he didn't damage it. So he twists, and of course the pivot is free spinning because. So now he's got this free spinning pivot to where he has to go find another flathead, tape that one up, and then crank them against each other, which is not super uncommon. I have to do that with Torx on a lot of knives. But the way that it was pointed out to me that I had forgotten to mention about the flathead was very forward, rude in a lot of circumstances. And I just am kind of, at this point, I'm just laughing because ultimately this super clever and ultra genius design of using a flathead screwdriver was executed pretty poorly, and ultimately doesn't really work without making modifications to a flathead or taking risk in disassembling the knives and doing damage to the pivot. So I'm going to move on from there. I just want you guys to know they are designed to be used with flathead screwdrivers. I just don't particularly see that as a good solution. I'm firmly of the belief that the screw or pivot type that you use should perfectly match a tool. Now, if that has to be a proprietary tool because you said so, then fine, we can talk about that. You can send me the proprietary tool. You can sell it to me if you're Marfione. There's different options. None of them am I a big fan of, but I have to say that designing something to be used with the wrong sized tool is not good design in my opinion. I really firmly believe that. Like, there's a reason that if you use a T6 Torx on a T7 screw, that you're more likely to mess that screw up because the tool doesn't fit. And that tool's the right shape. It's just the wrong size. With these, you have the wrong size and shape because you have curved, you have a curved design. Well, not really. It makes an X that's flat that you have the flathead up against, but you have a curved tool that you're using on a flat surface. It just doesn't work. That's not a good solution in my opinion. And the aesthetics gained from using a piece of hardware like that versus the heartache that it causes in trying to deal with it is not worth it. I don't think that was good design. I am firmly in disagreement with those who do think it's in good design, and that's all I have to say about it, and it's not that big of a deal. So moving on to the Black Dragon Forged video. In that video, I had said that the fixed blade that I had on display was D2 steel. It's actually not. It turns out that the model name is D2 by coincidence, and the steel is actually 5160 carbon steel. That was pointed out to me from a very kind viewer, so thank you for letting me know. When I had helped my friend purchase the knife, it just said, D2, and I didn't even think anything of it because D2 is a steel. I've kind of made a joke about that actually too, which is that the next USN gathering in Vegas is going to have a really good name because it's going to be G10, which is a knife making material. So I just think that's funny. That was a mistake that I made. I do apologize for that. It was 5160 carbon steel on the D2 model. The next mistake was that in my 3-leg dog video, I didn't know the name of the model. Turns out it's called the S2. And I would also like to report that I was correct in my assumption that the shallow detent on that knife was designed to better interact with the wave function. I had mentioned in the video, that the detent was super light and you basically couldn't use the flipper tab at all. The concern was that wasn't a result of the maker trying to make the wave function better, but that it was just like an error on the knife. And I'm pleased to say that I picked up a bunch of his knives at New York Custom Knife Show that were offered up by African Custom Knives, and they were fantastic. They all flipped really great, solid. They dropped shut. They were sick. They were great. So I would just like to report that 3-leg dog knives, definitely something that you can feel comfortable with. The next sort of correction has to do with Anton knives. If you remember my video on the Anton knives, Boudica or Boudica, I asked Nathan at the show how to pronounce it, and he said, I don't know. so we're just winging it with that one. But that knife, you guys can probably remember, it had a lot of issues, like bad issues. One was that the contact point for the lockup was you could put just a little bit of pressure on the spine of the blade, and this slipped. You would crazy lock slip on that knife, like nothing I've ever experienced. Just pinch gripping and lightly laying your index finger on the blade was enough to get it to wiggle. And that was just a lock bar where the contact point was, I don't know if it appeared, I looked at the inside of the knife and it appeared to be polished. So I don't know if it was just like polished and it was just slipping or what was causing that, but that was no bueno. The other thing actually has to do with this sort of blue lightning strike or electric lightning strike carbon fiber that you can see here. You can see on this Andre Thorburn, it's incredibly well finished. It's super glassy. There's no voids or anything. And on the Boudica, big issue that it had was tons of voids, like completely unfinished carbon fiber. It looked the same way that it looks like when you get the raw material, and that he just like sanded it a little bit, and like that was kind of it. I was really unhappy with the finishing on that carbon fiber. So again, I am really, really excited to let you guys know that I tried more of his knives. I've really deeply inspected his videos on Instagram, and there are major improvements being made with Anton knives. So for one, the Boudica that I tried at the show, no mechanical issues, deployed phenomenally, dropped close phenomenally. No lock stick. I really pushed on the spine of the blade. Nothing. Solid lockup. I'm really, really delighted to report that the mechanics on that knife were flawless. In addition to that, the finishing work on that knife was much, much better on the carbon fiber. Moreover, he recently released a couple videos of a Boudica that he's working on right now, sort of as I'm making this video, and it also has this carbon fiber, and the finishing on that almost looks superior to that of my Thorburn. So, as I mentioned in that original video, I knew that I was being very harsh on that man, but it's very important to me, again, guys, that anytime I introduce you to a new maker or talk about somebody who's sort of getting on their feet in the knife making community, it's really important to me that like we understand as a community that these guys are on a timeline, right? So like whatever you do as your profession, you sucked at it on the first day, right? Like we all did. That's life. And so I know that people get a little upset because they're spending lots of money on a product, but every product that people spend money on has been iterated and improved over time. I mean, we all bought the original Xbox. That might be a bad example. Please don't start a console war in my comments section. But, you know, we all bought sort of the original gaming console of whatever brand we follow. I'm trying to think of a different example. You know, we all bought a Motorola flip phone, right? But now we have iPhones and stuff. And so things just get better. You can buy something from a company or from a maker, and over time they're going to improve. Now, when you're starting on the super early end of that, I understand it can be difficult. It's quite a blow to spend $700 on a knife and have it not be, you know, up to par really, or up to standards. And so that's a bummer, but I think it's really important that we continue to give makers chances to prove themselves and to grow and to improve, even though I said that twice now. So I really wanted to report that I've gotten to try another knife. I've talked to a couple people that have bought his knives since then, and everything seems to be on the up and up now. So I really don't want that video to take anybody away from following Anton moving forward. And it's just really important that you guys know that things have been corrected since then. So it's good. So if I missed anything else, guys, if there were any other errors or lies that I told or anything in videos that I did not mention here, please let me know what they are. I hope that this video kind of shows you guys that I'm not afraid to say that I was wrong. Honesty is a big factor for me on this channel. I'm not like an expert in knives, guys. Like, I'm gonna say it. I think there were some people with that Talon video that said, oh, you're claiming to be an expert or whatever, but you don't know this or that. And I was like, I've never claimed to be an expert. My goal with this channel is not to be sort of like the objective deity for knives. Like, that's not what I'm doing here. I think knives are cool, and I like to talk about them, and I like makers, and I like this community, and so I just want to like show you guys stuff and make sure that you're making educated decisions. But I think by this time I've proven that if I don't know something or I'm unsure of something, that I will either let you know that up front and just say, take it with a grain of salt, or I'm not really sure about this, but or in circumstances like this, I will come back and I will update you guys on mistakes that I've made in my videos. So with that said, definitely please feel free to leave me that feedback if you have found something incorrect. Now, moving on, I really want to talk to you guys about a quick update to the channel. I won't stay too long on this, but it's really important. So I got some feedback from people at New York Custom Knife Show and from some friends, and it seems that the community would like a little bit more structure to my videos. I talked about it in the past, kind of destructuring things, because I didn't want to be super reviewy. I still really wanted to kind of preserve that aspect of what I do here, which is just having fun and just chatting about knives and stuff. But it is important that every knife gets kind of a fair shake, and that I don't focus on one thing in one video and then not mention it in the next, because it kind of makes it really difficult to compare knives that I've done videos on. So moving forward, let me click over here to the notes I have. So my new structure will still be kind of the same general overflow that you guys are used to, but just a little bit more detail. So the first thing that we're going to talk about in videos are the stats. You're always going to see the overall length. You're always going to see a size comparison versus a PM2 and a RAT2. And you're always going to see the weight. We're going to start every video with those three statistics. I know that some people that a lot of reviewers do more stats than that, and that some people want that. I'm going to sound like an asshole when I say this, but I'm of the opinion that you can Google it. If you need to know the cutting edge because of local laws and stuff, Google it, right? Like, they're customs, but they're all models, right? You can go to Andre Thorburns' website and look up all his models and figure that stuff out. I think it's important to touch on the quick stats that will give you a quick understanding of, is this or is this not a knife for me, right? If I tell you the overall length on a knife is 9 inches, you could be like, cool, I don't want it, right? Like, I don't buy knives at 9 inches. The same is true of weight. I think, it's a knife weight's really important, right? So whether or not a knife has like internal milling and all of that stuff will contribute to its weight. So I think weight's really important too, of whether or not you'd be interested in a knife. And then the size comparison is always good. So those are the three stats. If you want more stats, you can ask me in the comments and I will be happy to measure anything for you. If you want to know the thickness of the blade stock here versus the thickness of the blade stock here, I have calipers. I'll do it for you. But I don't want to take time out of my videos to give really small details. My problem when I watch knife reviews is exactly that. When somebody spends forever doing the stats, like, I don't need to know how thick I don't need to know that on every knife. And so it's really important to me that videos are kept as short as possible while still being entertaining and valuable, because everybody's time is precious. And so I'm not going to take the time to go over those little details. Again, if you want to know them, I'm happy to be Google for you. Just ask me in the comments. I will tell you whatever you want to know. I have no problem spending the time. I just don't want to have to make everyone else spend that time. So those are the three stats we're going to go over. And then we're going to jump into the features and flaws as you guys are used to. However, now there's more structure to it. So the first thing that we're going to touch on is materials/showcase, right? And that's generally how I start my videos anyway. That's just going to be me saying, this is titanium, this is electric lightning strike carbon fiber, this is titanium, this is a blade, right? Like, and then just kind of showing you like, hey, look at how beautiful this bolster is. And that's how we'll start videos. Just a nice overview where you get to understand all the materials on the knife and look at it really up close. I think there's lots of people that would be happy to hop out of a video after that. They just kind of want to see what the knife looks like. And so that's going to be up front and personal, the first thing that we talk about. The next thing is ergonomics. I'll discuss the ergonomics of the knife. The next thing is that I will discuss the clip, tell you how it functions, the retention, how many hands it takes to go in and out, pet peeves about it, length and stuff. We'll talk about that. Then we will talk about the action. Now, I have very deliberately separated the action into two different sections. The first is deployment, and the second is closing. And that is because they're two different things, right? Like, if you don't care about actions, you probably don't really watch my videos, because that's like a big thing for me and I focus a lot on it a lot. I would think that you would care if you're watching my videos. But so deployment and closing, two very different things. They can be very unique on each individual knife. I think it's critical that that's split into two different sections. For a long time, I've just talked about the action in general, and for much longer than I've been in the community, people have just been talking about the action in general. People will say, oh, the action is really smooth. Oh, the action is really clean. What do you mean by that, right? Like, that is not nearly specific enough to really understand how a knife is functioning. So I think it's very important that I break that into both deployment and closing, and we'll review each separately, and then if it's a knife that does both particularly well, we can kind of talk about how that coalesces into an ultimately great action overall. But we want to start by talking about deployment and then closing. The next section will be the blade. That is when I will discuss the steel, the shape, the grind, and the finishes, right? Nothing too extreme, but I do know that the fact that I've left out blade steel on some videos has upset some people, and that's fair. The fact of the matter is, I'm not really a blade guy. I don't really care. I don't care what blade steel I have, as long as it's not a blade steel from a list that I have. There's a list of steels that I have that just really don't work well with my environment and rust a lot. And most of the high quality steels that you're getting on customs anyway aren't those. So for the most part, it's not something I usually focus on when buying a knife. But I understand there's a lot of value to knowing that to everybody else. So it's really important to me that I start to include the blade steel, and I will do my best to do that in the future. The last section is just going to be miscellaneous, and I'm going to kind of leave that open to myself. Anytime there's something on a knife that I want to point out that doesn't fit into one of those particular sections, that is where I will go over it. And then if it is a knife that has a story behind it, the final section, as has always been true, will be story time. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks so much. If you have feedback on the sort of framework that I just laid out, maybe there's a critical thing that I forgot, or something that you really want me to emphasize, go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. But I was really excited to kind of give you guys an update, and I think things should work well moving forward. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about those changes. Thank you to everybody who gave me feedback, and yeah, thanks so much, guys, and I will see you next time.